I killed my 7 siblings. I watched them burn. I heard their screams, and if I could go back, I'd do it all over again. I know how monstrous that sounds. I know right now you're thinking I'm a psychopath, a demon, the worst thing to ever walk this earth. But before you judge me, before you click off this video and just call me a murderer, I need you to hear my whole story. Because what I did wasn't for fun. It wasn't out of insanity. It wasn't for no reason. What I did was the only way out I could find to end a hell that had been destroying my family for decades. And yeah, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have found another way. But when you learn the truth, I learned when you see what I saw, when you understand that those kids, those 7 innocent kids never had a real shot at being happy, then everything changes. My name is Jamal. I'm 17 years old. I've been in a juvenile detention center for the last 11 months, and this is the most twisted, sick, devastating story you're ever going to hear, but it's real. Every word I'm about to say happened, and I need to tell it, because I can't carry this weight alone anymore. It all started 17 years ago when I was born. Although really, it started long before that, when my mom was 13, and her own life turned into a nightmare she could never wake up from. But I didn't know any of that when I was a kid. For me, my life was normal. Well, as normal as it can be, growing up in a house with 7 younger siblings, no dad, and a mother who barely looks you in the eye, and is always checked out like her body is there, but her mind is somewhere else completely. I grew up in a small house on the outskirts of the city, a house that always smelled like dirty diapers, leftover food, and dampness. My mom's name is Maya. She's 30. Yeah, 30. Do the math. She had me at 13, and then 7 more came after. Leo at 14, the twins. Ava and Chloe at 16. Noah at 18. The triplets. Eli, Liam, and Zoe at 22. 8 pregnancies in 17 years. 8 kids before she was 30. And she never ever spoke about a father. There were never any pictures, never any names, never any explanations. When I was little, like 8 or 9, I'd ask her, "Mom, where's my dad?" And she'd look at me with those empty, dead eyes of hers and say, "We don't have a dad, Jamal. We never did. It's just us." And then she'd go to her room and lock herself in for hours. Sometimes I'd hear her crying. Other times, there was just silence. A heavy, sick silence that made you feel like something was deeply wrong, but you didn't know what. My mom never worked. We lived off government assistance social programs, the food donations we got from the local church, and my grandfather, Earl. Earl is, I don't even know how to describe him. To everyone else, he was the family hero, the man who stepped up to take care of his single daughter and his 8 grandkids, the one who brought us groceries every week, who paid the rent when my mom couldn't, who took us to the doctor when we got sick. Everyone in the neighborhood admired him. "What a good man," the neighbors would say. Maya is so lucky to have a father like that. And I grew up believing it. I grew up seeing my grandfather as the only solid pillar in my messed up life. He'd come to our house 3-4 times a week. He always arrived with grocery bags, cheap toys for my siblings, and cash that he'd give my mom while whispering things in her ear. Things I could never quite hear, but that made her go stiff, made her close her eyes and nod like a robot. And then he would stay for hours. Sometimes he'd lock himself in the bedroom with my mom, and I'd have to watch my siblings keep them busy with the TV, with whatever, so they wouldn't bother them. When they came out, my mom's eyes would be red. My grandfather would be smiling, and I didn't understand any of it. The years went by like that. I grew up being the oldest brother, the one changing diapers at 3 years old, giving bottles at 5, making cereal for breakfast, because my mom would stay in bed until noon. I was the one who walked Leo to his first day of kindergarten, because she couldn't get up. The one who did homework with the twins, while my mom was in the kitchen taking pills. The one who slept on the floor, because the triplets needed the bed. I didn't have a childhood. I didn't have friends, not real ones. I didn't go out to play, didn't go to parties. My life was taking care of kids. 7 kids who cried, who demanded, who needed. And I loved them. God, I loved them so much. Leo, with his big eyes, and the way he'd hug me when he was scared. The twins who followed me everywhere calling me JJ. Noah, who asked me about everything, absolutely everything, because I was his encyclopedia. The triplets who were just learning to talk, but would get so excited when I came home from school. They were my family, my responsibility, my whole world. And then I turned 16, freshman year of high school. That's when everything started to fall apart. I had a girlfriend. Her name was Kayla. She was new at school, showed up in the middle of the year. She was quiet, mysterious. Always had this sad look in her eyes that made me want to protect her. We became friends fast, and then something more. She was my first everything. My first kiss. My first time. My first real love. Kayla never talked about her family. She said she lived with her aunt, that her parents had died, that she didn't like to remember. And I got that. I didn't talk much about my life either. What was I going to say? That my mom was a zombie, and I was raising 7 kids who shouldn't even be my responsibility. But with Kayla, everything was different. When I was with her for a couple of hours, I could forget that my life was a disaster. I could just be Jamal, a 16-year-old kid in love. Normal. Until one day she told me, I need to tell you something. Something that's killing me inside. We were at the park. It was night. There was a full moon, and Kayla was shaking crying. She told me her aunt wasn't really her aunt. She was a social worker. That she'd been rescued from an abusive situation when she was 12. That her biological father had raped her for years. That she had a sister who was a product of that abuse, a sister she never knew because they took her away at birth. It broke my heart to hear her. I held her, told her it would be okay, that she was strong, that I'd always be there for her. And then, as if to show me she trusted me completely, she pulled some old papers out of her backpack, documents from her abuse case. She told me, I want you to read them. I want you to know everything so you don't have any doubts about who I am. I read them right there under the light of my phone. And when I saw the name of the abuser, my world stopped. Earl Johnson, my grandfather. I couldn't breathe. I read and reread the address, the dates, the details of the abuse. Kayla had been abused by my grandfather when her mom, who worked cleaning houses, left her with a trusted neighbor for 2 years from age 10 to 12, until she finally told a teacher, and everything blew up. Kayla was looking at me, waiting for me to say something, but I couldn't speak. Because in that moment, like a flash of lightning, everything in my life started to make sense. My mom's pregnancies, the absence of a father, my grandfather's constant visits, the locked bedroom door, my mom's dead eyes, everything. Kayla is my sister. My girlfriend is my sister. And my grandfather? My grandfather is a monster. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I got home, and my grandfather was there eating dinner with my siblings, laughing, helping Noah with his math homework. And I looked at him, and all I could see was a predator, a rapist. The reason my mom was broken. The reason I never had a childhood. The reason my 7 siblings existed. And then I knew. I knew with every fiber of my being. Those kids aren't my brothers and sisters. They're my aunts and uncles. Because my mom is also a victim of the same monster. My grandfather had created all of us, and nobody knew. Nobody even suspected. And I had just fallen in love with my own sister. The next few days were the worst of my life. I couldn't be near Kayla. I told her I needed space. She didn't understand. She thought the abuse stuff had scared me off. And maybe it did, but not in the way she thought. I stopped going to school for a week. I spent the whole time locked in my room looking for answers for confirmation. And I found it. My mom kept things, old things. Photos, letters, documents, all hidden in boxes in the closet we shared. One night when she took too many pills and passed out, I went through everything. I found Leo's birth certificate. No father's name. I found the twins' birth certificates. No father's name. All of them the same. And then I found something else. A diary. A worn-out pink notebook with yellowed pages. And it was all there. My mom had been writing since she was 13. Since the abuse started. Page after page after page of horror, of begging, of pain. Unwanted pregnancies, threats from my grandfather. If you talk, I'll kill you. If you talk, I'll kill your baby. If you talk, I'll take them all away. No one will ever believe you. I'm your father. I made you. You belong to me. I cried reading that diary. I cried until my chest hurt. My mom wasn't a bad mother. My mom was a broken little girl who never had a chance, who was raped by her own father since she was 13, who had 8 of his children, who lived in a private hell for 17 years with no escape. And we were the product of that hell. That night I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to confront my grandfather. I was going to make him pay. I was going to end this once and for all. But first, I needed a plan. Because I knew if I just accused him, nobody would believe me. He was the neighborhood hero. I was just the weird grandson. I needed proof. I needed him to confess. I bought a small cheap voice recorder from the corner store, and I waited. 2 weeks later, my grandfather came over on a Tuesday afternoon. My mom had a doctor's appointment. My siblings were at school. I had skipped on purpose. We were alone. I told him we needed to talk. He looked at me confused. About what, son? And then I let him have it. I told him I knew the truth, that I'd read my mom's diary, that I knew he was our father, that I knew he'd been abusing her for years, that I knew everything. I expected him to get nervous, to deny everything, to leave. But he didn't. He laughed. He laughed right in my face. Oh, Jamal, he said, sitting down on the couch like it was nothing. And what are you going to do with that information? Go to the cops. You don't have any proof. The diary could be fake. And even if they believe you, who's going to believe you? A kid from a crazy family. I walked over to him. You're a monster. I'm your grandfather. I'm your father. I'm the one who's fed you your whole life. Without me, you'd all be on the street. And that gives you the right to rape your own daughter, the right to destroy her life. He stood up. He stared at me. And then he said something I will never forget. She wanted it. She always wanted it. Why else would she keep coming back to me? Why else would she never tell because she liked it? And to be honest, Jamal, you're just like me. You think I don't know? You were sleeping with your little sister, Kayla? Yeah, I know who she is. She's my daughter too. And you fell for the same thing. So don't get on your high horse because you're exactly the same. I punched him. I broke his nose. He started bleeding, but he just laughed. He laughed while blood dripped from his mouth. That's it, son. Prove you got my genes in you. I couldn't sleep that night because he was right. I had been with my sister without knowing it, but I had done it. And that made me part of the cycle, part of the curse. And in that moment, I understood something. My siblings Leo, the twins, Noah, the triplets, they were part of it too. They carried the genes of that monster inside them. They were going to grow up and find out the truth, and it would destroy them. They didn't deserve that. They didn't deserve to live knowing they were the children of incest, that their grandfather was their father, that their mom was a victim, that their entire existence was the result of a crime. And that's when I started thinking, when I started planning. Maybe the best way to save them was to end their suffering before it even began, before they grew up and had to carry this truth, before they became what I had become, someone broken, traumatized, stained by the crimes of another. Maybe killing them was an act of mercy. You know how long it took me to convince myself of that? 3 months. 3 months of sleepless nights, of watching my siblings play, watching them laugh, watching them be innocent, and knowing that innocence wouldn't last. That one day, somehow the truth would come out, and it would shatter them. And all the while my grandfather kept coming around, kept being the hero, kept locking himself in the room with my mom. I needed it all to end, and I knew exactly how to do it. My grandfather lived alone in a house about 20 minutes from ours, an old wooden house with a gas stove. It was his sanctuary, the place he kept all his personal things. I'd been there a few times helping him with repairs. The plan was simple. I was going to start a fire, make it look like an accident. My grandfather would die, and the secret would die with him. But then I thought, what if that's not enough? What if someone else investigates? What if the truth comes out anyway? And that's when the idea grew. What if we all died? What if my siblings disappeared in that fire too? They wouldn't suffer. It would be quick, and they would never have to know the truth. I know it sounds insane. I know it sounds like something only a psychopath would think. But in that moment in my twisted, broken mind, it made sense. It was logical. It was the only way to end the cycle. But hey, before I continue, I need you to do something for me. If you've made it this far, if you've listened to my story up to this point, I need you to hit the like button on this video. Seriously, press the thumbs up button below. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. It's free. Just hit that red button that says subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any stories. Because all the stories we share here are this intense, this real, this disturbing. And I need to know there are people out there willing to listen without judging right away. Hit like, subscribe, and I promise you what comes next will leave you speechless. Because what I did after that, what happened that night, it was worse than anyone could ever imagine. I planned everything for 2 weeks. I studied my grandfather's schedule. I knew that on Friday nights, he stayed home alone watching TV. It was the perfect time. I told my mom I was sleeping over at a friend's house. She didn't even look at me when I said it, just nodded. My siblings were eating dinner. I hugged every single one of them. Leo asked me why I was hugging him so tight. I told him it was because I loved him so much. He smiled, and I smiled back, even though I was dying inside. It was Friday, September 23rd. I'll never forget that date. I got to my grandfather's house at 10 p.m. I knocked on the door. He opened it, surprised to see me. Jamal, what are you doing here? We need to talk, for real this time. He let me in. He offered me something to drink. I said no. We sat in the living room, and then I began. I told him I'd thought a lot about everything. That maybe he was right. That maybe I was like him. That maybe genes were stronger than morals, and I wanted to understand. I wanted him to explain how it all started with my mom, what the first time was like, how he kept her from telling anyone. And he talked. God, he talked. With pride, with that sick smile on his face. He told me everything. How he first touched her when she was 11. How he waited until she was 13 to go further, because in his words, she was more developed. How he threatened her. How he told her it was her fault for being so pretty. How he enjoyed getting her pregnant over and over, because it gave me kids without having to marry anyone else. I recorded everything, every single word. But the recording didn't matter anymore, because in that moment, I knew there was no remorse in him, no humanity, just pure evil. I waited for him to get up to go to the bathroom, and then I made my move. I went to the kitchen, turned on all the gas burners without lighting them. Gas started to fill the air. Then I went to the gas tank in the backyard, opened the valve all the way, and placed a few lit candles in the living room near some old curtains. My grandfather came out of the bathroom. "What's that smell?" "Gas. There's a leak." "What, where?" "From the stove." He went into the kitchen, and I took my chance. I ran out of the house. I locked the door from the outside. He started screaming, banging on the door, but I was already far away. I waited on the corner. 20 minutes later, the candles did their job. The explosion lit up the night sky. The fire consumed the house in seconds, and I just watched with tears in my eyes, my heart pounding, certain that I had done the right thing. Until I heard the screams. It wasn't just my grandfather. There were other voices, children's voices. "No, no, no, no." I ran toward the house. The firefighters were already coming. Neighbors were coming out of their homes, and I was screaming, "There are kids inside! There are kids!" A firefighter stopped me. "You can't go in there. It's too dangerous." "My brothers, my sisters are in there." And then I understood. My mom had brought them over without telling me. She had left them with my grandfather to watch them while she went. I don't know where. All 7 of them. Leo, the twins, Noah, the triplets, they were all inside. The firefighter held me back. I was crying, screaming, trying to break free. But it was too late. When they finally got the fire under control, they brought out the bodies. 7 small charred bodies, unrecognizable, and 1 larger one, my grandfather, alive, but with burns over 80% of his body. That son of a bitch survived, and my siblings died. The next few days were a blur. The police questioned me. I said I had gone to talk to my grandfather, that I left before the fire, that I didn't know my siblings were there, that it was an accident, a gas leak, bad luck. But my mom knew. She looked at me, and she knew. 2 weeks later, while I was in my room, she came in. She sat on my bed and said, "Thank you." I froze. "What?" "Thank you for ending it. I wasn't brave enough, but you were." "Mom, I didn't want to. They weren't supposed to be there." "I know," she said, "but maybe it's better this way. They didn't deserve to grow up with this curse. None of us did." And in that moment, I understood something else. My mom knew what I was going to do. Maybe not the details, but she knew. And she brought the kids to my grandfather's house that night herself. She wanted it to end too. She killed them too. A month later, they found the recorder in the wreckage with my grandfather's confession. And that's when everything fell apart. They opened an investigation into my mom's pregnancies. DNA tests confirmed we were all my grandfather's children, that she had been abused for years. My grandfather died in the hospital 3 months later from infections. My mom was committed to a psychiatric hospital. They didn't press charges ruling that she had severe Stockholm syndrome and wasn't mentally competent. And me? I was charged with 7 counts of homicide, premeditated murder. But because I was a minor, they gave me 20 years in a juvenile detention center with a chance of parole in 10. I've been here for 11 months. 11 months of thinking, processing, understanding. Do I regret it? Did I do the right thing? I don't know. What I do know is that my siblings aren't suffering. They won't grow up knowing they are the product of incest. They won't carry the trauma that I carry. They won't see their mother broken. They will never know the evil of their father. They're at peace. And maybe that's enough. Maybe I murdered 7 innocent children. Or maybe I saved them from a life of pain. The line between a killer and a savior is thinner than you think. I crossed that line, and now I live with the consequences. Kayla found out everything. She came to see me once. She cried. She screamed at me. She called me a monster. Asked how I could do that. That she was my sister too, and I never saw her again after that. I don't blame her. I hate myself sometimes too. But other times when I close my eyes and remember my siblings, I see them happy. Playing, laughing, not knowing the truth. And I tell myself I did the right thing. That I gave them the gift of never knowing. The gift of dying innocent. Is that just a way to justify what I did? You tell me, because I don't know what to think anymore. I just know that every night I hear their screams. And every night I wonder if in some parallel universe, they're still alive, growing up happy, without ever knowing the truth. And I wonder if in that universe, I made the right choice by doing nothing. But in this universe, this one I'm in now, I made the decision I made. And I have to live with it every single day for the rest of my life. Now that you know my story, now that you know every detail, every reason, every justification, what do you think? Am I a murderer? Or am I someone who did the unthinkable to end a cycle of abuse? Before you answer, before you comment, I want to ask you for one more thing. Like this video. If it impacted you, if it made you think, if it stirred something inside you, hit like so YouTube knows that these kinds of stories, these real raw stories deserve to be heard. And subscribe to the channel. Seriously press that red subscribe button. We post stories like this every single day. Stories from real people who lived through unimaginable things. Stories that will leave you speechless. Stories that will make you question everything you thought you knew about good and evil. Turn on the notification bell so you know when we upload a new video. Because I promise you every story you find here will be as intense as this one. Or more. And in the comments, tell me what would you do in my place? Do you think I did the right thing? Do you think I'm crazy? Am I a monster or just another victim? If you also have a story you need to tell, if you lived through something that's eating you up inside, leave it in the comments. Maybe your story will be the next one we tell. Because here we don't judge. We just listen and try to understand. I know this video was long. I know you might be tired, and I'm sorry for that. But you can't tell these things in 5 minutes. These experiences have to be told in full, with every detail, every emotion, because otherwise people don't get it. And I needed you to get it. I needed to get this off my chest to someone, because in here, in this detention center, nobody wants to listen. Everyone just sees me as the monster who killed 7 kids. And maybe I am. But you listened. You made it to the end. And that means more than you can imagine. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for not clicking away after 2 minutes. Thank you for giving me the chance to tell my truth. Thank you for being part of this community where we support each other, where we don't judge without knowing the whole story, where we understand that the world isn't black and white. I'll see you in the next video. If you want to come back, if what you just heard didn't scare you off too much, but something tells me you'll be back. Because once you enter this world of real stories, of impossible confessions of truths that no one else dares to tell, you can't leave. Welcome to the community. And remember, like, subscribe, comment. See you soon. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry if this was too much. Sorry if I made you uncomfortable. Sorry if you can't stop thinking about what I just told you. But someone had to say it. And that someone was me. Jamal. 17 years old. The killer of my 7 siblings. And I don't regret it. Because sometimes to save someone from hell, you have to do something hellish. And I did it. I did it, and I'd do it again. Because they didn't deserve to live with the truth. And now you know it. What are you going to do with it?